Welcome to 8-Bit Popcorn, the pacey, perceptive, and pertinent podcast. My co-hosts, as ever, are Ryan.
Hello.
And Joe.
What's up?
This week we're all about soundtracks and scores, chatting about movie music and the effects of effective and memorable visuals paired with great tunes. My question to you guys is, what makes a good film soundtrack for you?
I feel like I know a good soundtrack once the hairs on my arms are standing. And I don't know if it's, be a response, I suppose. In the same way that I think if I'm like really engrossed in a scene, doesn't matter what type of movie or genre, but I kind of feel like cinematography, that's like what I love. A lot of it's subconscious stuff. It's information being fed to you visually and in the back of your mind. You know, it's that information's being read. I kind of feel like on the same level, then you've got music and it's kind of conveying an emotion or a character's intentions or something to that effect. And
yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question. How do you know a good soundtrack? Yeah, I think it's something similar to what we touched on last week whenever we were talking about the Justice League, and I mentioned Wonder Woman's soundtrack or her theme or leitmotif, whatever you want to call it. And it's whenever the movie visuals and sounds and music come together and you sort of feel more than you would if they were separate or if one of the elements was missing. And
everything just synchronizes.
It just sort of comes together.
Yeah, it really adds to what you're seeing. Yeah.
Symbiosis of visuals and sound.
Ooh, great word.
Yes.
I thought of Spider-Man when I said that.
Yeah.
The early Spider-Man Fox cartoons.
We are 8-Bit Popcorn.
Yeah, we are geniuses. What about you, Zara?
It's true. I really think that an emotional connection is what makes a film soundtrack for me, because the ones that when I was thinking about this topic and what ones I wanted to talk about or what ones made a big impression on me, there was always some kind of it always made me feel something. There was always something linked to it where whether it was obviously like sadness or happiness or whatever it was, or it was more of a, as you guys say, like it adds to a character or it tells you more about the story, or kind of it added a little bit of substance to what you were seeing. All of my memories were all very, I could really vividly remember the scene and how I felt when I watched it because of the music. So I feel like mine is a real kind of emotive response.
Is there any, just off of what you were saying there about feelings, is there anything for either of you two, that any movies that stand out, be it today or from your childhood, that just because of the music just really hits home?
Yeah.
Like what stands out the most for you when you think about a score, some composition, like what movies stand out the most?
I'll tell you what movie stands out for me. Well, there are like three movies that stand out for me, but are three composers, but the movie that stands out for me the most as one that will probably like trigger a crying response is Titanic. Just every time I hear that, ooh,
yeah.
I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, I had that on my list as well. Titanic.
Yeah, it brings me just right back.
It's hard to beat.
And then I go on like a Titanic soundtrack binge, and then I'm useless for the rest of the day.
A good cry.
Yes.
Okay.
You're gone.
Yeah, I'm just gone. I'm like trapped in nostalgia for the rest of the day.
I've never went out of my way to like instigate a cry, to forcefully make myself cry.
You should try it sometime.
I should try.
Oh, it's great.
I should
try
Cathartic.
I will try it.
Billy Joel
it
does it,
and then send it to you guys.
Oh, please do. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That would really make us
Make
happy.
a TikTok compilation of it.
Real men cry. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Hashtag. Oh, that is true. I can just, it's one of those things where, as you're saying, you're transported back to it. You can totally see the visuals that accompany that sound, even if you haven't seen it in years or whatever. Yeah, it totally brings you back there.
Well, I actually had an example, which I stole online, about how music changes perceptions. So in this scenario, imagine a scene where our main actor, is running through a field. You know, the brush is tall and they are running as fast as they can with no clear emotion on their face. And in the background, you hear a brooding horror soundtrack with shrill violins and low end rumbles. And, you know, how do you feel for that actor? You're kind of feeling scared or concerned for their well-being or what's behind them. It's essentially a horror movie. Now, imagine the same scene and the actors running through the same field, but this time inspiring action music is playing instead in the background. You know, instantly that changes your perceptions of that scene and what's happening.
Yeah, it's almost like that. Is it that Hitchcockian thing? It's the Kuleshov effect or something, where you intersperse connecting images and then just put a different image in between the reaction shots. It's almost kind of like that. You know, you just put different music over the same blankish scene.
Yeah, just as we were speaking about it, actually, I remember in when I was doing my media study degree, we were flashed with a series of photographs. Doesn't matter whether it was a person lying in a coffin or a person staring into the camera with an expressionless face. You play different music and it just totally changes your impressions. And suddenly you start thinking you're seeing frowns or you're seeing smiles or a little twinkle in their eye. And it's quite funny the change then that music can have in our perceptions of a scene.
Yeah.
And how much effect it has on our perception of the characters or the narrative. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. It can kind of maybe, as you're saying, like you start to see frowns even if they're not there because of the music that's playing. Can it be used in a sort of detrimental way where you kind of...
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like, I suppose...
Yes.
You have to be careful.
I've got an example.
Okay.
Oh, okay, cool.
Well, I was just going to say that... damn it, Joe.
Damn it, Janet.
I think I was going to say that it's just
classic.
important that the director works very closely then with the composer, because you're trying to convey a certain character in a certain way, and I suppose it's important that the music very accurately reflects that, because bad music's going to reflect poorly. But yes, what was your example, Joe?
Well, have you all heard of Death Note?
Yes.
So the anime. So it got a Netflix adaptation like a few years ago. And boy, oh boy, was the soundtrack to that movie awful. It was the climactic scene, and like the movie was just utter trash anyway, so it's not as if the music could have saved it in any way. But there's a bit where the main villain, shall we say, of the movie is like fallen from a Ferris wheel. Spoilers, but who cares? It's a shit movie. And instead of like, I don't know, this ominous music playing or something, there's this 80s music playing, like, it's the power of love. And you're like, what is happening right now? It was just so weird. It was this slow motion love song playing while she fell to her death. And you're just going, what's going on right now? And there was a few examples like that throughout the film, and the film was tonally inconsistent to say the least, but the music really pushed it over the edge to the point where I just had to laugh. It was a ridiculous movie.
And you're not meant to laugh at that, I'm sure.
There was a period where a lot of movies were choosing they had very odd choices in their music selections. Like, look at the start of the first Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know what the band was called, but I mean, that was a great song, but it was not what I was expecting for a Marvel movie. Or I suppose the oddest I can nearly think of is I watched years ago, is it Spring Break with James Franco? And at one point they had this Spring Breakers, yes, and they had a sequence in it with Britney Spears. But I was like, what the fuck? But it worked brilliantly. I thought it was a fantastic thing, but there was definitely a period where a lot of people were sticking just really random, but I'm sure maybe very well chosen songs in their movies that didn't make sense.
Right. Was it to make it noticeable? Because that's the thing. Is it better if...
Well, I remember it.
Is it more effective if you don't
I'm speaking about
realize?
It now.
Yeah.
Like, it stood out for me, and I was like, wow.
Yeah. Lots of choices to be made by directors and producers and editors and composers. Yeah.
Just kind of going back to what you were saying there, Zara, about what kind of maybe stand out for us. Mine would probably be Star Wars, obviously. Like, I think when you think of Star Wars, I just imagine myself sitting in the living room at the age of 7, 8, 9, doesn't matter, on the chair watching Star Wars for the 100th weekend in a row, and my dad coming in on a Saturday and saying, "Again, seriously?" And I'm like, yeah. And that memory is just stuck with me,
For sure. It's a very visceral, especially when you're in the cinema and you're watching a Star Wars film. I remember, was it maybe Rise of Skywalker? Sorry guys, I don't mean to bring it up again, but I did sit there in the cinema and listen to the soundtrack and read the text scrolling up the screen, and I thought, wow, I never thought I'd be in a cinema watching a new Star Wars film. And maybe I shouldn't have been. Maybe none of us should have been subjected to that, but at the same time, when the music played, there was something about that, and I was like, wow, here I am in the cinema.
For The Force Awakens?
Force Awakens, the first one, yeah. they're
what you meant.
so interchangeably titled for me.
Okay.
I feel like Rise of Skywalker sounds like the first in of three, and I always seem to get. So is it Force Awakens?
The Rise.
The Last Jedi,
Then Last
and then
Jedi.
Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, sorry. Yes, The Last Jedi and then The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Right, because you see, I think the third one could have been titled The Last Jedi
Yeah.
because of what happens in it. You know what I mean? I feel like those titles are so. I always get them confused.
But I know what you mean. Like I remember
But,
going to see The Force Awakens.
The Star Wars theme's great.
Yeah. And as soon as I heard, the crawl, the tune, you're just like, wow, you're just a 10-year-old kid again.
Yeah. I was just going to say that whenever I went to see The Force Awakens, I don't know whether it was like the new orchestra or whether it was a weird instrumentation, but see, as soon as that movie started and the opening crawl started, I was like, there's something off about this music.
Oh, and Joe already knew.
I did. Like, it's not that I already knew the movie was going to be awful. I was just like, it doesn't sound right. And I heard that there was loads of trouble with John Williams. Well, not with John Williams, but with the production behind the scenes, because John Williams had no idea what the story was, and so therefore he could not write any particular leitmotifs for the film. So what he did was make them all countermeasures or counter melodies to one another, so that they all kind of fit together and they could fit in almost any story scenario. So he was actually very clever with that, but it made
really
it very
difficult.
indistinct.
That's really difficult.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So
that's why he gets paid the big bucks.
It is, yeah, it's very clever.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some composers out there that you instantly know who it is. Like like a Hans Zimmer or John Williams, just when you hear it.
Yeah, I can tell Danny Elfman like.
Yeah, exactly. That's really nice. So one of my favorite composers is Harry-Greggson Williams. So he composed a lot of the Metal Gear Solid franchise. So it's one of my favorite games, and I love the music so much in every kind of iteration of that music with every game. And I thought that he had done Face Off and Con Air and Gone in 60 Seconds, which I watched just there recently at the weekend, because they all sound very, very kind And I actually went and looked at it, and they're by different people. I was like, what?
Similar-ish style.
I was actually upset. I was a wee bit upset by that. I was genuinely upset because I was like, oh, Harry, no.
Why you got to be generic? Fuck's sake.
Yeah, but I love, though, if you can imagine the music in Con Air or Face Off, that style, like, that's my favorite action music. That is action music to me. Above anything even that exists today, that style of music for me is just out of this world. Like, anytime I'm sitting watching, it's also because I love Nicolas Cage, his earlier movies. But when I'm watching him and like Gone in 60 Seconds and he comes out with a wee one-liner, or Con Air, and the music and the big twang of the guitar, you're just like, yes, I love it. It just ramps me up, and I just, that's what makes the hair stand, on the end of my arm. And then it's the action scenes as well. And I love his earlier action movies, and the music just really flatters that.
It all comes together. Yeah. I have to say, I love the Bond themes. I've always been really into the Bond films, and I love all the kind of, mostly the 80s and 90s ones. They were kind of my faves. But I remember my dad had a compilation album, and I was just obsessed with every single, because they're all so different, but they all have that thread running through them that they're a Bond theme. And then also I have to shout out too, because you mentioned Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, which was very Bond-like.
Yeah, it really was.
It's really, really cool. I love that song.
Does
Have you
anybody
guys
know?
got other favorites?
I was gonna say, well, yes, I have a bunch of favorites.
Favorites what?
What were you
Favorite
gonna say?
composers or favorite film?
Just probably
Favorite scenes that were like, because I have so many that I think, because as soon as we started talking about soundtracks, I was like, oh, that scene in that film, like all of them that were so characteristic.
First scene that just popped in my mind there was episode 3, whenever Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting, and the lava's just shooting up
the
between
heroes.
them.
Oh wow!
Yes, and that's just
Such a good. Yeah, I think that won an Oscar for best original composed song for a movie.
Oh wow!
So yes, Joe, you'd already said Titanic, and Sarah, you said James Bond. We've talked about Star Wars, Harry Potter, Con Air, and Face Off. I also love the Jurassic Park theme. Everybody knows Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Jaws.
But also John Williams.
Yeah.
I like Dragon Ball Z.
The anime?
Just like the Dragon. Yeah, I love the Dragon Ball Z thing.
Oh, well, I love Naruto. Oh my god, the music in Naruto is amazing.
Have either of you guys watched Samurai Jack?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
There's some really good tunes in that. Some really good sequences, really complemented by some cool music.
Well, I even find that, like, in my work, like, there's times where if you don't find a good song and you feel like you have to settle for an okay song, then you're just not that happy. But like a good song can change everything. It could just really make make something stand out.
Yeah.
I had down Christmas songs because they're in movies. I know they're not maybe original compositions in movies, but I love Christmas songs in movies.
Yeah. Well,
and you do love a Christmas movie.
I just watched why Home Alone is the best Christmas movie soundtrack ever. Obviously John Williams. And he did compose some original Christmas songs for the movie. He composed "Star of Bethlehem." That sort of theme that you hear throughout it, but he also composed, of course, "Somewhere in My Memory," which is the main theme of Home Alone, and it's a beautiful little theme. And he used like some, I think it's Aeolian methods to create the chord progression. Then he added, of course, jingle bells to like nearly every song to give it that Christmassy feel. But it's interesting to see how he created his own Christmas themes while also obviously incorporating loads of other classic Christmas songs into it as well. So you should go watch that one by Sideways, the channel that you were watching earlier on, Zara.
Oh yeah, with the Pixar one. Yeah, they have some really nice content. Actually, I must check them out. Yeah, it's interesting that you guys picked up more on score than because when I think of music in films, I always think of like popular music and what was in the charts at the time, or someone using like a well-known like rock anthem or pop anthem in a film. That's kind of where I always go to. One of my favorite scenes that uses popular music is in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, when it's Twist and Shout at the end, and he's on the like float in the middle of, was it Chicago they were in? But I just remember watching that when I was a kid, and I was like, this is sick. It's so good. And like 80s soundtracks in general are my jam. So really stood out to me.
It's in Spider-Man 2 whenever he loses his powers, and what do you call it? Oh yeah, raindrops keep falling on my head. Yes. I love that bit. Yeah. It's so cheesy, but so Sam Raimi. So I mean, that's a bit of popular music in a film. I think it's such a stupid sequence, but such a lovely, amazing sequence where Peter's trying to live a normal life. So yeah, it stands out to me.
Does anybody have any idea on who they think is the top grossing composer at domestic box office?
Hans Zimmer.
Yes. I'm going to say John Williams. Oh, is it Hans Zimmer?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does everything.
Yeah. Then John Williams.
I thought because John Williams had done more stuff back in the day, maybe, but Hans Zimmer. Hans is in everything.
Yeah. And he does loads of collaborations, so he'd get plus he did the Bond theme recently with Billie Eilish, so.
He does a lot of Nolan stuff too, so I should have known that.
Oh, he's good, yeah. He did I Am Legend
2005 I Am Legend
soundtrack,
and he worked actually on The Dark Knight and Batman Begins, or maybe it's just Batman Begins. That he had some kind of input there as well. With he worked with Hans Zimmer, they kind of collaborated.
Yeah,
and then
nice.
I thought you were going to jump in. Then Alan Silvestri.
Yes, he did Back to the Future.
He did Endgame. Yes, Polar Express and Forrest Gump. And then you had Danny Elfman. I kind of thought Danny Elfman would have been higher up the list.
I would have thought James Horner would have been before Danny Elfman.
Well, I only did the top 5 there. I wasn't going to go through the entire list, but I thought Danny Elfman would have been a lot higher.
Yeah.
He does everything Burton. He did Men in Black. He's done Spider-Man and Mars Attacks, which I love. The Grinch, like anything.
He did the original Justice League soundtrack, but then it was replaced with, who was it? Hans Zimmer?
The Justice League?
Yeah, he did the Justice League soundtrack, and he did the Avengers Age of Ultron soundtrack.
Okay.
And he also did the original Spider-Man Sam Raimi things, which is fun because those soundtracks are awesome.
Well, following on from your Dark Knight mention there, Ryan, I can't let that go. I have to interject with my little thoughts on that, because I love the...
You and Chris are over.
No, I can't get over it. I love the Joker drone that's used. It's I think the track is actually called Why So Serious, but it really builds like atmosphere, and I was re-listening to it. At first I was like, oh, it's just like really menacing and really like atmospheric and whatever, but then when I re-listened to it, it kind of brings out all of the things that the film symbolizes. Like there's like a heartbeat like part which is really tense, and then there's like ticking like a bomb or a clock, and then a real like sense of madness, because the majority of the instrumental was actually made from just 2 notes being played over and over again on lots of different instruments.
Yeah.
And it just is really effective. And I always remember that as a score instead of, a popular track being used, that's the one that always kind of sticks in my mind. And obviously, Mr. Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer, who does everything. He loves that rising tone kind of thing. He'd used it in Dunkirk as well.
Yeah.
And he loves a little experimental score. He uses more atmospheric scores rather than like, he does use leitmotif, but it's more that kind of, as you say, you know, like the ticks of something, or he uses like, what do you call it? Like incidental music, or what do you call it whenever something is actually in the movie, but it is music? Oh God, I can't remember. I can't remember the diegetic music, diegetic tones and stuff.
Oh, do you mean it's off frame? You talking about like
it's either like a sound in the film, or it's a song that's actually in the film. Like say in American Psycho, whenever he plays Huey Lewis in the news, like it's actually playing in the film, but we are hearing it as well, of course. So diegetic.
Okay. Yes.
But we shall be remiss if we don't mention one of the greatest soundtracks of all time, Lord of the Rings by Howard Shore.
No.
Oh, my goodness.
Isn't that just the perfect example of a movie soundtrack?
Oh my goodness!
I mean, it's no more iconic than Star Wars. Like Star Wars is more iconic.
Well, yeah, but
more
iconic.
Yes, Sarah. Yes.
If I actually had to pick between the two, I think I would pick Lord of the Rings.
As more iconic.
Not as more iconic, but just as I like it more. Although if I had to pick one song from them, I would pick Across the Stars from Star Wars. Attack of the Clones.
Yeah. It's not the best movie though.
Not the best movie, but like,
well, it's my favorite movie, so let's not say that too loudly.
I think it has the best song. That song is just
excluding the most recent three.
Yeah.
I like Attack of the Clones.
I have a really vivid memory of my dad playing. He must have maybe got the soundtrack to Lord of the Rings, but it was like that
Concerning Hobbits
part, and I was just like, I was completely just like transported. I was like, what are these songs? Like, I don't know. It was so magical.
Along with Titanic, like that song, like really takes me back. And I'm like, oh no, here comes the nostalgia. Here comes the tears. So, yeah.
Do you know one song that makes me cry? And I don't know if any other song has this effect, but Billy Joel, Vienna. Anyone know it? No, it's quite obscure. It's in 13 Going on 30, which, as we know, is one of my favorite like girly rom-coms. But it's the scene where she goes back home and she's kind of remembering that it's actually fine to be at whatever stage in life you're at, and you don't have to think about the future too much or worry about whatever, blah, blah, blah. And she kind of just accepts where she's at, and that song plays. And I think when I was a kid watching it, I was like, oh, this is kind of cute or whatever. But now as an adult watching it, bawling my eyes out. I don't know why. It's just there's so many bits in that song where I'm like, oh, that's personally attacking me.
Billy Joel was really prominent in, you know, that is it Amazon series, The Boys?
Yes,
the
series.
Yeah, the main character in it like really loves Billy Joel, and he constantly plays it. So I mean, you would love those Billy Joel songs.
Yeah, The Boys. I never got around to. I think it was season. Yeah, I think I saw season 1. I don't think I
still haven't watched it.
2.
I'm currently watching. Actually, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What are you watching? What are you watching?
I've been watching loads of different things, so it's just one of the things I'm watching. But
okay.
I'm really
is it a guilty pleasure?
It is a guilty pleasure. I'm watching Desperate Housewives.
Oh, I watched that. I rewatched that a couple of years ago.
The writing's really good, actually. I'm surprised.
I watched that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I watched it with my dad.
Composed by Danny Elfman.
When I was a kid. And yes, and I maybe only watched like 2 seasons, but I remember sitting down. It was maybe every Thursday with my dad, 9 till 10 or whatever it was. I'm watching it with him. Surprisingly, that my dad was enjoying it too. But like, there's so much shit that goes on. Like, everybody's just a bitch and everybody's a bastard, and there's just so much.
Oh, guys, no, I really want to do one of those quizzes where it's like, which Desperate Housewives are you? And I want to find out which one we all are.
Yeah, so do I.
That would have been good. We should have done that.
We have to do that. That'd be so much fun.
We'll do a retrospective review on Desperate Housewives.
Okay, you've got that to look forward to.
That's my guilty pleasure currently at the moment. I'm just started the second season. Does anybody know? I kind of went and checked out a list of the worst soundtracks ever, as well as the best, actually, as well as the best.
All right. Well, let's start with the worst.
Hit us with it. I'm so excited.
Yeah. One of the worst. Some of the worst actually was Lady Hawk. Anybody watched Lady Hawk?
Oh, I've heard of it.
Heard of it, never watched it. The Troll 2.
Oh yeah, well, I've heard Troll.
Oh
yeah, is that the one?
Not the Disney movie. Not the Disney movie.
And now they're gonna eat me. Oh my god.
Felix the Cat, the movie. I've never watched
I've heard
that.
of it, never seen
Never
it.
heard of that.
The Room, by with Tommy Wiseau.
What?
That's got a real
A classic.
What a film.
That's not badly scored. That's perfectly scored for the movie.
We have to do
shit
a whole
score for a
episode
shit
on.
movie on Tommy Wiseau.
An
On the Room.
amazing
On The Room.
movie.
I've never actually watched it all, so I do need to
I've never watched
do
it all.
that. Yeah, so we need.
We
to
should watch it because
we should.
This is the best opportunity. Here we go.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
Podcast. Yeah.
it's because they did a sort of remake, I suppose, or a homage to it.
Yeah,
didn't
they
with Seth
did
Rogen
a-
and James Franco.
Yeah.
Which
like
I was
a
really
making of,
curious
kind
to
of.
watch because James Franco's performance seemed like it was really
Yeah,
on
it
point.
was a good movie.
Yeah.
Oh, you've seen it?
There was a
Yeah, it was
It's
really,
more about
really good.
the kind of the turbulence and the troubles of making it, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Which I was
right.
really
It was
interested
more
in.
behind the scenes. Yeah.
I
There's
watched
a really
it
good
twice.
song in the trailer.
I'll have to watch
Once
that.
at home and then once on the flight to Florida on Virgin
wow.
Airlines. It was really good.
What a
I'll have
place to
get
watch
We'll
that.
have to watch
Yeah.
both and then do a
Yeah.
comparison.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That'll
Yeah.
be really fun, actually.
The Wild Wild West.
Ugh. Yeah.
Sorry, the Wiki Wild
The
Wild
Wiki Wiki
West.
Wild. Yeah.
Wild Wild West.
And I actually
Call it
couldn't
its
really
right
remember. I couldn't really remember the score, so I YouTubed it. And there's a lot going on. Like there's a lot of instruments, and they're coming and going, and they're there and they're dropping out. And then there's elements like hip hop, and they're throwing elements of action. It's just like they're
Yeah.
meshing different, like genres just horribly on top of each other. So I could
feel
understand
like-
why it doesn't work.
The 90s, early 2000s had a lot of genres going on in films, in music.
It's like it didn't know
There was a
what
lot of rap and
it
rock.
wanted or
and-
needed to be. Much like the
Yes.
movie, I suppose,
Yeah.
but it was just it is a
It needs
mess.
more cowbell.
Yeah. And surprisingly, actually, one of the last one on the list was Rocky 4.
Oh, okay.
They felt like there was a
Oh.
lot of too much, Eye of the Tiger and all those kind of inspirational style songs, and I thought, nah, that's bullshit.
Too much.
You just
of
can't go
that?
wrong
Can
with
you
Rocky.
have too much? Of
I
that?
don't think so.
I don't
think
think
so.
that's possible.
Mhm. So that was only a short list. There's other movies I'd never heard of, so that was just a few that I threw out there, but that was very
Yeah.
interesting to me.
Mm.
Greatest of all time, same problem. Some I've heard of, some I haven't. So there's Superfly, 1972.
Yeah. Never heard of
Groundbreaking
it.
for its themes of poverty and drug abuse, apparently.
Okay.
Okay.
And it went on to
Let's check that out.
influence everything from like TV score composers to soul singers.
Okay.
Ooh,
So
wow.
I have to check that out.
Purple Rain.
That. Oh well.
Purple
Yes.
Rain.
Yeah.
The prince
Um,
himself.
Yeah. Again, these could you argue that the greatest of all time? I call bullshit.
Oh, you could definitely argue.
Like you definitely
Yeah.
You can always
Very
argue about
easily
anything.
argue. All I would say
mean,
is Star Wars to every answer on this list. I think I would
Yeah.
win.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, even that would win.
Casper.
Train Spotting, Deep
Oh,
Blue Day,
okay,
Lust for
yeah.
Life, Guardians of the Galaxy, Red Bones, Come and Get Your Love.
Yeah.
Again, the start of the song or the start of the movie.
I
Who
think
the
Joe will
fuck
be the
made
same
this
with me,
list?
who
Yeah.
has a problem with Guardians of the
Well,
Galaxy.
I
being
didn't
Yeah.
believe the list was accurate. I thought this doesn't make sense to me. So I looked
Yeah.
across 3 different sites, and they're all generally have the same list. So there was
There may
some
be
thread
Yeah,
responders
within
one of them's the
that.
original article, and then the other
Right,
two
and then they've
copied.
copied it. Yeah, they're maybe
Yeah.
responding more to like fans, kind
Well,
of.
there's a few kind of like alterations in between each one, but they're all
Mm.
generally roughly kind of the same list. 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, brilliant!
I
Yeah,
understand that.
I'd agree with that one.
Do the Right Thing with Samuel L. Jackson.
Never seen
I
it.
don't
Never
know
seen
it.
it. The Graduate, 1968.
Okay.
with-
Oh, The
yeah,
Graduate. Yeah.
Sound of Silence.
I mean, again, you could argue Star Wars, Lord of the Rings beats all of them.
Yeah.
There was a long
Yeah.
list. There was a long
Personal
list. But none
taste.
of them interested me.
Yeah.
None of them interested
That's
me. I don't
true,
care
yeah.
if you have personal taste. You're wrong. A lot of these movies, like if you said these to anybody, even I was flicking through these going, nope, 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 nope. Like James Bond, Jurassic Park, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Christmas music, Titanic. You just can't. You can't beat
yeah.
that.
I mean, I get The Graduate, because that was like Simon and Garfunkel that did a couple of songs for that one. But the other ones, I don't know. Maybe they're just more influential than they are like, ooh, best soundtrack ever. Because I mean, you could really make the argument for Star Wars, especially with John Williams. If you look at a lot of that music is derivative, shall we say?
Blasphemy.
It really is derivative, and like I'm not saying that in a bad way because
Explain
everything's
yourself.
derivative.
Explain yourself. It sounds
I
like it's in a
think-
bad way.
In that channel Sideways that we were talking about earlier on, he does a video on Star Wars music and where it sort of was originally inspired from, or came from, and he puts the sample soundtracks in that John Williams, shall we say, jumped off from. Some of them are extraordinarily just like the original soundtrack or the original song that he was riffing on. That's not to say it's a bad thing, because they're not exactly the same, and he kind of brought classical music into.
You're saying he's not iterating on his own work enough?
Well, I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm not saying that it's not different enough. I'm just saying that it's extraordinarily similar. I'm just saying you could make the argument that the likes of Star Wars doesn't, and Harry Potter doesn't exactly deserve. The Harry Potter really, really relied on the Nutcracker and Tchaikovsky to create its soundtrack. But you could just make the argument, well, they don't really deserve to be called the greatest soundtracks ever, because they are kind of derivative of other soundtracks or of other musical pieces. Not that I agree with that, because I love the Star Wars soundtracks and Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and all that. I'm just saying that you could make the argument.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why people don't pick them, because it's kind of
agree that
knowledge.
They kind of brought classical music though into because especially, I mean, if you think about those films, like Phantom Menace, that was made for kids. It was kind of like not for kids, but you know what I mean. It was that kind of a marketed towards. But even like Jewel of the Fates and pieces like that were influenced by I think it was Holt's The Planets maybe was one of the influences behind those kinds of like really intense soundtracks. So I think that was a really good thing that did. It brought that classical element to scoring.
And again, the Planets one, it's whenever the Death Star blows up in A New Hope, and the way it goes dun 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 dun. That, I think that's the planets again. And I
maybe
think
Mars,
that one's either Mars or Jupiter. Can't remember which one it is, but so awesome. He was taken from the planets all the way back then.
And then Star Wars is about planets, but it's like
well, it's a good one to take from.
What just came to mind actually is we're excluding composers of games. Halo, Hitman,
True.
Yeah.
Sonic the Hedgehog, Mario. Do you know what I mean? Like these are also.
Oh my God, Sonic Adventure 2.
I was never a Sonic man. I feel like you were always either Sonic
so many
or Mario.
of them are coming back to me.
I was always Mario.
I was Sonic.
What was the one, Joe, when they were in the mine and it was like, we in the mine, like it was like gemstones or something.
Was it that was like Knuckles one? The one that I really remember was whenever Sonic's like going down the hill on the snowboard or something. It's like falling around at the speed of sound.
So good.
I just always felt like the Sonic games were lazy, easy. I don't know. You just kind of go
had that anime vibe to them.
And you do a couple of jumps and you're at the end. And I kind of feel like the map did most of the work. I mean, I have played it recently and it is hard. Growing up, I kind of felt like, it's a bit shit. I preferred Mario.
I always find Mario really difficult. I just think I'm not meant to drive.
Yeah. I hated his voice, all that. Woohoo! I preferred Sonic. Gotta go fast.
Yeah.
I think for the same reason I'm not enjoying the Sonic games. I still haven't watched the movie.
Oh, watch the movie, right? It's actually
I'm not
good.
saying I won't.
I think you'll enjoy it.
I've heard people say
John
it's
Ralphio
actually
as
surprisingly really good. I just haven't got around to it
John
yet.
Ralphio.
I'm too busy watching Desperate Housewives.
Yeah.
I know, right? You're very busy.
Yeah, I'm sitting with my tissues, my wee cup of tea, my wee blanket over my knee.
And your wee cookies.
My wee cookies. Yeah. I love my wee cookies. Jaffa cakes, actually. Jaffa cakes are great for energy. So I said have some Jaffa cakes with tea there before this podcast. Just crammed 4 of them into my mouth.
Has to be done. There's raspberry ones now too.
There's raspberry ones. I have tried.
Gotta try those. Yeah, there's definitely new flavors. There was pineapple. They were really nice.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That's like putting pineapple.
No, they were actually good.
No.
I like pineapple.
No.
I like pineapple things
but
too.
As we've discussed before, where did the Jaffa cakes go? Are they a cupboard biscuit or a fridge biscuit or an up your ass biscuit?
So I had this discussion with a few friends and the name, I guess, Jaffa cake, that it's a cake and that it's, but to me, I don't know, it's shaped like a biscuit. I know it's not a biscuit because it's not crunchy.
No.
But cupboard for me. No. But is it fridge? Is that what does it say? Please refrigerate. Whatever it says on the packet, I'll do. I don't mind.
But no packet ever says store in cupboard, does it?
Store in a cool, dry place. No, but
it will say store in a cool, dry place. So that's
my fridge is cool and dry.
Fridges can be a little moist.
They can
Or
be
you
a
could
little
say your
moist.
fridge is cold and dry. Is that
Cool
different from
isn't
cool
far
and
from
dry?
cold.
Shall we
Cool,
play this
cold.
semantic game?
Yes.
Mm.
Telling you, stick a Jaffa cake in the fridge. You will love it. You will thank
Really?
me for
Okay.
it. Because it's
But
chocolate.
then does
It's chocolate.
the chocolate was all crispy then? I like chocolate to be like melty.
I like cold chocolate.
You like when you bite into it, it's like got a
I
crunch.
do. I love a good crunch.
We're
Yeah,
just different
that
people.
tempered
Right?
crunch.
We're just different people. We can't be friends.
A tempered crunch.
Is your chocolate tempered? Mm.
Is it tempered enough? Has it been warmed then cooled?
We are all different people because you're like, oh, I like soft chocolate, I like hard chocolate, and I'm like, I don't like chocolate. So
Oh well, then there we go. The three different
we
extremes.
got the triad going. we are
got
the
the
Holy
triad.
Trinity.
The
Oh wow, guys,
Three
Illuminati
Musketeers. Yeah.
confirmed.
Yeah. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
The Father, the Son, and the Holy Joe.
Yeah.
Holy Joe.
I feel like I should be the ghost because I'm just so pale.
I think I'm giving you a run for your money this week, Joe. I feel like I'm
True, actually, yeah, I've got the
feel quite
jaundice look going on.
translucent.
Yeah,
I have to admit something, guys.
go ahead, go.
Oh no,
I feel like this is a safe space.
it's not.
I feel like I can talk to you guys about anything. It's not. You're really not safe here. I feel like I can talk to you guys about anything. And you do know where I live. That's okay. I bought the CD of Shark Tale.
Oh,
Hold
what?
for applause. And, and I listen to it often from
Is that-
ages
Wow, okay,
13 to maybe 16 or 17.
Doesn't it
Yep.
have the song "Working at the Car Wash"?
Yep.
But yeah, it does
Whoa,
indeed.
whoa.
So whenever
Christina
we
Aguilera.
inevitably piss off Zara, we just need to be standing outside our house with the boombox playing "Working at the Car Wash."
That classic scene. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got to be Missy Elliott. Just her verse. Yeah,
I mean, it's a good
there's
movie.
nothing better.
I enjoy those movies. I watched over the weekend Moana on Saturday morning.
Oh, was it
I
good?
just wanted something easy to watch. I like the music.
Mhm.
I like Lin-Manuel Miranda. I think he's a very
Miranda.
good composer. I enjoy his work. So it's not the only reason I watched it, but as I say, it's a nice,
It's
easy
watchable.
Saturday morning.
I haven't
movie,
seen
and
it yet.
The music's really good.
I haven't
You
seen
should
it
watch
either.
it, Joe.
Actually, I'll
It's one of
check
the
it out.
better Disney Pixar movies.
I like the main
Mm,
song.
recent.
You know that "How Far I'll Go." I like
Mhm.
that song. Just couldn't be bothered with Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Yeah, he's he's too
yeah.
much now. I think that's when he was kind of at his height appeal, and now he's just everywhere to the point where it's like, right, piss off, back under
It's
your
too
rock.
much.
Yep.
Yeah. Back under
Nice.
your rock, the rock.
The Rock.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be an 8-bit popcorn episode if we didn't bring at least a little media theory into something.
Hmm.
You do it this time, Joe.
Yeah, I'll do it this time, you know, because
Yeah,
it's not like I ever
We
do
can't
it.
always do it. Yeah, we'll let you do
Yeah.
one.
I'll do it
you-
next time.
We all seem to be gravitating quite a lot towards, I'd say, like 80s, 90s, maybe early 2000s soundtracks. And if you kind of look at them, there's a lot of like classical techniques going on with them. The melody is very important in them, or repeating melody, also known as leitmotif. I've said it a couple of times here. And now I'm just kind of plagiarizing myself because I'm actually reading a quote from my own essay here.
Oh,
Or my master's
Wow,
degree.
we've reached that level. Okay.
We have reached that level where, like, you know, I'm just like,
I'm
fuck it,
quoting
just
myself.
not only. Well, okay, so this was about like a podcast creation that we did at university, and this is a quote from another author called Matthew Bribitzer Stoll or whatever. And I was using it as like a repetition of like either sounds or motifs within a podcast. And he says leitmotif then is not just the musical labeling of people and things or verbal labeling of motives, but it is also a matter of musical memory, of recalling things dimly remembered and seeing what sense we can make of them in a new context. So I just wanted to bring this up because I think, right, I know I'm always harping on about Marvel and Disney and whatever, but the Avengers conglomeration of movies don't really have a set song that they have now. I know they've got that Avengers theme that they play only very occasionally, but like Iron Man doesn't have a theme. He had a theme in the first movie, lost it. Captain America had a theme in the first movie, kind of lost it as well. Thor had a theme in his first movie, then lost it. It was never really played again. Their musical motifs were never ever repeated. And so I think one of the things that I've been saying a lot about the Marvel movies that they do not hit home at all emotionally for me. And we've kind of touched on that music is very important with that a lot of the time, because music as a like as a remembrance device is very powerful. If you think back to Star Wars, the first time you hear the Force theme, Luke standing out over the binary sun, and you hear it repeated with Obi-Wan, and you hear it repeated with any time he uses the Force, that reinforces that kind of emotional connection in our heads. And then anytime we hear it, we're like, oh, I remember that. Whereas with a lot of the Marvel stuff, like what do you hear for Iron Man? What do you hear for Thor or Captain America? You don't really hear anything. So what do you think of that? Do you sort of think that the absence of those that music can then make the movies as a whole a little bit hollow in some ways, a little bit less memorable for your emotions?
It's interesting, I suppose.
I think it definitely can. Yeah.
I never really felt like every movie needed it. You could nearly argue that as you got more familiar with the characters and they were no longer one, but an ensemble, a team. They didn't need their own individual cues anymore because they were one team. But that's bullshit. I don't know.
That's a good way to talk out of it. Yeah, that's great.
Good. There's an argument for it. Somebody will argue that point. I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like if it's in something like Star Wars or Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, I feel like, you should have those in those big epics or those kind of movies that you're going to be with for a long time. I feel like if I was watching a one-off movie, I don't know, maybe not so much. Don't know. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'd agree. If you're familiar with the characters and you're going to see them again and kind of join them on a journey, then for sure, motif works really well. I think the first time that I kind of really looked in depth into motif was also my master's degree. I feel like as media students, we've all written about soundtracks or themes or, we've kind of all delved into that in some way or another. But I looked at like adaptations of Shakespeare, but from the modern day kind of. So like that MTV generation that did 10 Things I Hate About You and Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, and talked about, the use of Radiohead songs as, whatever themes are being explored. And the use of motif and how when a character is on screen or talked about, you're played the same piece of music so that you begin to associate it with them. And then you begin to expect to see that character. Or if there's something that's nothing to do with them and you hear that motif, then you're like, oh, well, that's going to be to do with that. And that's what I associate that with. So it's that familiarity. And I think motif is, when it's used effectively, is really, really cool.
What do you think, Joe? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of agree. When it's used effectively, it's an effective tool for that. And I am like a big proponent that, not to discriminate against our deaf listeners, which is an oxymoron, but that sound is a very important part of cinema. Sound can kind of get to you before visuals, I think, sometimes, because there's layers that you have to go through. Visuals, you have to go through framing, you have to go through the context, the light and everything, and your brain kind of takes it in, where sound is very direct. You were mentioning the Dark Knight soundtrack and how tense it is whenever the Joker's on screen. I don't think it would have been nearly as tense without like that drone in the background to build and build and build that tension like a rubber band. And that was his kind of motif whenever he was on screen. And I don't think there's moments in the likes of Star Wars that would have been nearly as impactful without John Williams' soundtrack sort of reminding you and bringing you back to certain emotions. Like even within the fight with Anakin and Obi-Wan, remember that bit where they do this spinny thing? They're in the control room and they do this spinny trick, and then they like clash their force push together and it plays the force theme. And then you're like, ooh, yeah. It's just a nice wee sort of break and call back to these two are friends, because it's not only the force theme, but it's also kind of the friendship theme. So,
right, yeah.
And music itself can tell the story. And if it doesn't continue on with the story, then it's kind of meaningless. It's just sound in the background rather than adding to anything. So
yeah, that's true. It kind of, you forget about certain elements or certain emotions because, as you say, the music can help to tell the story, and if it doesn't accompany the visuals, then what's it there for? What's its purpose?
just
really?
sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
It made me think of Drive.
Oh,
When Nicholas Winding Refn decided to
Gosling.
they decided to go back and actually take out the iconic music and soundtrack within that movie and replace it. It was a couple of years ago. I was trying to find it there online. I remember that I can't see what they changed it to. They basically went back and stripped all the music out and replaced it with something different, just to see if the movie was still as good as people remember, and as an experiment to see that the impact that good music can have. and I would imagine everybody's seen Drive and everybody remembers
Mhm.
the style of the music in that. It was
Mhm.
just mind blowing. I absolutely loved it because it felt
It was
neon.
unreal.
It felt
Yeah.
just like it fitted within that world. I would love to have
Mm.
watched it to see what they had changed the music to, but it's that
Yeah,
exact
I would
thing
love to see that.
that you were saying, Joe, of music tells the story as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Some
Yeah.
particular
I
choices.
wonder,
Yeah.
would it be the same without the, yeah, because that was one of the, whenever we said we were going to talk about film soundtracks, I just thought of Drive and that opening scene. And I was
Yeah.
just like,
Mm.
I think that's probably the opening scene of a film that I've watched the most, apart from maybe The Dark Knight. But from like the robbery to the police chase to the baseball game, and then just that night call by Kaczynski is so, and even I love things, like I love music videos whenever the beat is recreated visually. So
Mm.
whenever he like comes into the apartment with the bag, leaves the bag off, goes to the door, and on the beat he turns the light off. And I vividly remember pausing the film and going to get my housemates and being like, you guys have to come and see what I just witnessed. Like, I just
Yeah,
have to show you this. And I was like texting my parents, and I was,
They
but
edited
it was a
to
big
the
moment.
beat.
I remember it was a huge moment, and I had to pause it because it's such a mood, it's such a vibe,
Yeah.
and it adds so much to what you're saying.
I love that we can all nerd out to that extent, Sarah, because television and movies and music, it's such a large part of your life, irregardless of whether you're in the industry or love the industry or not. Doesn't matter whether you're a plumber or a builder or an accountant. Like, you watch a lot of media. You see this every day on your TV, on your phone, and we get to, I feel like we get to watch just as much, if not more, maybe than other people, than the average person, but we can just take in so much more enjoyment from something people just do every day, just willy-nilly. And I love that we can nerd out.
We get to enjoy it more
Like,
than
we're not doing something
normies.
niche. We're not doing something very niche and trying to enjoy that, like sculpting or painting or something. Like, we're enjoying something that everybody enjoys, but we can really nerd out about something so, in a way, average and common.
Yeah.
Just to build off your little Ryan Goose or Gosling, whatever you want to call him. When he grows up, he shall be a full-blown goose.
He should be a goose.
You shall be a goose one day, Ryan. Don't worry. You're still a Gosling. But anyway, so Blade Runner 2049. Spoilers, if you haven't seen, have both you seen Blade Runner 2049?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So sorry if you're listening to this and you haven't, but whenever Ryan Gosling's character, does he die? I don't know. He lies on the steps at the end of the movie and he's kind of dying or whatever.
Yeah, I don't really think maybe do you?
Yeah, it's
Does he
left
lean back?
very
It's
ambiguous.
Yeah.
And the Tears in Rain soundtrack starts playing.
Wow,
And
yeah.
of course, that comes back to the first Blade Runner movie whenever
Roy.
Rutger Hauer, or Roy Batty, starts talking about Tears in Rain, sort of have like an existential crisis whenever this song is playing. And so you know from context that then Ryan Gosling's character is having that same sort of existential crisis as, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be robot? Even though he's saying nothing. So the movies are using intertextuality and they're using the music to do that. So I think whenever you've got
the reference as well. Sorry, Joe.
No, go.
I'm just saying, I mean, just that kind of reference in, if the audience is familiar with the first film, then they'll know, whereas anyone else could listen to that and be like, oh, that's a nice song. That's a nice moment. Yeah. But, if you can make that connection, it kind of adds a layer of, it's just a little bit more special.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, if you're in the know, then it means more and you can glean more from the story. So,
well, it's the same love and attention, I suppose. If you're given like visual cues to earlier movies or story plot cues to earlier movies, you're giving audio cues, and certain people will love and enjoy that and recognize that, and other people won't, which is sad as well when you kind of, as a composer or cinematographer or whatever have you, go the extra mile to think, oh, I'm going to do this. This is going to be just beautiful. And 80% of people don't even notice your work.
But I mean, you have to put it out there with the kind of belief that people will or will not, and it's not really, it won't depend on people enjoying the movie if they get it or not,
Yeah.
You guys have seen Metropolis, right? I think everyone studied that at some
point.
point.
A long time, yes.
Giorgio Moroder did a version where he put loads of like 80s music over it and chopped out scenes and made scenes longer and cut it and edited it and made scenes different colors, and it was a little trippy, but incredible.
I put David Bowie over that shit.
Yeah, and it was like Adamant, and it was all these kind of big names at the time. Bonnie Tyler. It was really, really good. And I watched it in uni, and then everyone in the class was like, "What the did I just watch?" Really like offended personally by it. And I was just sitting there like, this is the most incredible thing I have ever witnessed / listened to. And I'm going to go home and download all these songs. But then I remembered that I love the 80s and I love that aesthetic. And a lot of people were like, what the heck is like an adamant? And I was like, guys, you don't get it.
And deliver.
It's so good.
Have any? Do you all have Spotify?
Yeah.
A version of, yeah.
Version of. Does anybody ever go and listen to, or does anybody ever watch a movie and then think, right, and then they start logging, all the soundtracks? Like sometimes in the car, I would rather listen to soundtracks.
My playlists on Spotify are like all soundtracks and stuff.
Nearly all soundtracks. Yeah. And a lot of the music that I got when I was a teenager was from movies. So I would watch a film and I'd be that annoying friend. They'd be like, wait, can we, I was like, guys, can we Shazam this scene? Can we pause? Can we Shazam? And they'd be like, can we just watch the movies? And I'd be like, no, this song is incredible. This is amazing. I'd always be that friend. They'd be like, what's that song playing in this scene? And no, everyone would be like, we're just watching the film we wouldn't notice the music. And I was like, no, there's a really good song playing in the background. Is that? And they'd be like, shut up.
You know what?
Always,
like, it has a really, really good like pop music soundtrack. Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Oh yeah.
That's like, it made me obsessed with Come On Eileen.
It's so good.
And David Bowie's Heroes.
The living room dance or something.
Yeah.
So good.
My God. What
the Flash
movie.
And Hermione Granger.
Yeah.
How incredible is that?
And Percy Jackson.
Oh, and Percy Jackson. Yeah. Nice. Wow, that's crazy. I love the opening. Is it the opening or is it maybe not the opening of Donnie Darko? Where they play Head Over Heels by Tears for Fears. And it's like all that kind of slow-mo but sped up. He's like walking through the school and you're meeting all the kind of key players. And I thought that was a really good way to introduce all the characters. And then his sister's like doing that dance she's like with all her friends, like practicing a dance for the show and stuff. And yeah, I just thought that was such a good way to introduce everybody. It was really effective.
Good song can like really do it. So we have like talked about lots of composers and stuff. So you said your favorite like composer was Harry-Gregson Williams, or at least you thought he was whenever you thought he had composed all those things.
His style was very
not done with him
generic,
yet.
And now he's kind of just, he's opened up, not he, but I have just been opened up to new composers.
Oh, okay. So would you have his favorite composer or anything, or even just artist that's worked on a soundtrack or anything, Zara?
I will have to go really generic and say Hans Zimmer. And I know he's been so like written about and talked about until till death, but just because he's so synonymous with Christopher Nolan films, and there's something about the way Nolan scores a film I just think is really effective. And
don't cry. It's okay.
I'm gonna just like tear up, guys. I'm getting really like emotional. But no, I just think he does really well, and I think their relationship is really has really grown, and they can kind of read each other and what they want from a scene. So I think
they're the new
there we
Tim
go.
Burton and Donnie Elfman.
Bringing it back.
Well, yeah, we started with symbiosis, and here we are.
What about you, Joe?
And what about you, Joe? Who's your favorite? Is yours Danny Elfman?
Oh, well, it actually used to be Donnie Elfman, but I don't know. I don't really listen to his stuff much anymore. One composer that just sort of keeps popping up, I go, oh, who wrote that song? It was him. And I keep going, I love his stuff. Obviously, I've mentioned John Williams, I love his stuff, but I don't think it's more like the odd song that I really love of his, and I wouldn't really listen to it in isolation. It's more that I listen to it in the context of the film. But a composer I do love and keep listening to his stuff is James Horner, who sadly passed away in 2015, but he left an amazing legacy behind him. He did Titanic, did Casper, of course, a masterpiece. He did The Amazing Spider-Man, which I actually think has a really, really underrated soundtrack. Say what you want about the film, I think the soundtrack is class. And he just does these lovely, and he did Braveheart and stuff as well.
Oh wow!
So
yeah,
really, really talented composer, very good with a melody. And good with sort of carrying that through the movie. I like that. But, I have to give a special shout out to Hard Show as well for Lord of the Rings, because that's just a masterpiece in and of itself. But whatever.
Whatever, it's fine.
But whatever, it's fine. It's
just incredible. It's okay.
It's just genius, is all I'm saying.
Is what it is.
You can argue against me, but you're wrong.
Shall I read my amazing outro?
Come on, Zara.
Come on, Zara. Oh my gosh, that
Read
really
your outro.
motivated me there. Oh, that's really, I feel like I need that as my ringtone and be really like pumped for the day.
Let's end the episode and go on to next week.
Maybe that should be it. I feel like we should just end there.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the one.
We'll just
Underscore
do a
that and then
remix in the edit of Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, you can
Auto-tune
just
that
edit
shit.
it, Ryan, to
Yeah.
be like,
Mhm.
and start with it, wicked,
Yeah.
and then you're good to
Wicka,
go.
wicka, wow, wow.
Wiki Zaba.
Oh, see, it totally
It
fits.
all comes
Totally
together.
works.
Yeah.
Wow. Ah, beautiful. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this magical journey through film soundtracks. Let us know on our socials what your favorite music movie moments are. Should we hashtag that? Sounds like a hashtag. Anyway, and as ever, keep it 8-bit. Say bye, Joe.
Bye.
Say bye, Ryan.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening.
Bye, bye, bye. Follow us.
As that just fades out in the background, you can just fade that out.
Follow us, follow us, follow us, follow us.